Hi all, it's Nat here. Hope you're all doing well. I'm on for my second tutorial this round with the great products that I got from Globleland. So the links to Globleland will be down below, which will include individual links to products that I've been using for my two tutorials. There is the unboxing as well. I'll link that and my previous tutorial down below so you can see what I've been doing and what I've been using for the last few videos. There's also a code which is NAT10. If you use that upon checkout at Globleland, you can get 10% off of your order, which is really cool. So for this tutorial, I want to have a go with these awesome insect stamps. They look really, really fun. So I've got some ideas of what I'd like to do with those. And then I also got this set of dies. So we've got these, which I think will make awesome journal cards with the distressed edges. And we've also got these that came with it. So we've got a clock face and a whole pile of cogs and some clock hands. So heaps and heaps of fun. So I'm going to wriggle these apart because they're still all joined together. So I will use my pliers and just wriggle them to get these little bits off so that we've got the individual dies. And then we will get started. So I have some craft cardstock here. I have my scraps of craft cardstock that I've saved. And I'm starting by stamping out the bug stamps. So I'm using my archival ink in black to do this, and I'm stamping 3 of each of the bugs. I'm doing an extra bug than what I need, just so I can practice a bit of my colouring and that on to find out what markers and that I want that I think will look good in that. It's always good to do a bit extra, especially when you don't really know what you're doing. So these are stamping out beautifully, as do all the other stamps that I've got from Globleland previously. So I did have 2 whole sheets of cardstock that I'm going to use afterwards as well, but I thought it'd be good to use some of my scraps to do the stamping on. So my 2 whole sheets I'm cutting in rough halves so that they'll fit in my big shot a bit later on. And first I want to paint them with my metallic paints. These are just cheap spray metallic paints that I think I got from Kmart at one stage. So I'm just tipping a bit of the paint out onto my cardstock and then brushing it on. I want to use a few of the different colours. I have silver, gold and copper in these spray paints. They stopped spraying effectively, so I'm just going to tip them out and use them. And I'm using the different colours on the pieces until I get coverage. Tipped a bit too much out there of the copper, so I'm just using the excess on the next sheet that I want to paint. And I've got the silver here, and I'm just going in with a bit of that to fill up the areas where I can see the cardstock still. Once I've got it all painted, I put it aside to dry. So I do that with the 4 halves that I have cut with my craft cardstock. Quite a process to make these tags. I was having a bit of fun experimenting. So next I want to do a bit of stamping onto those backgrounds once they're dry, and I have 2 different text stamps that also came from some Globleland sets that I have. You would be able to find them in previous videos. So I'm just stamping one of them, again with my archival ink. I go in sort of both directions there, because I don't know which way I'm going to have my journal cards and tags. It's good to have the stamping going in both directions. And then I just put the cardstock down and my dies on top to cut my journal cards. They cut beautiful. I managed to fit 2 of the dies on the first piece and then the other 3 on this second piece. Then I do cut a 3rd piece with these dies, and I leave the last piece whole for the other dies that came in the set. So I'm just cutting some of the scrap bits from the ones that I did just run through the machine, and I'm going to use those scraps up by cutting the cogs and the smaller pieces from the die set out of them. I'll just use my pokey tool to remove the die cuts from the dies. I find this quite cathartic, actually. I'll just continue doing that with all of the die cuts. Now I've got the whole piece that I had left over, and I'm using that to cut the clock face. There's a couple of bigger dies that didn't fit on the scraps, but I decided just to do all the dies all in one hit on this. The more the merrier. What I don't use for this project gets put away for future projects. So I did put a die in the middle of the clock there because the circular bit comes out anyway as a scrap. So I thought I'd put the cog die in there to get a cog out of the scrap. So they cut really nicely to all of these dies. So that created another sort of washer type cog thing that I'm going to use as scrap bit there. So I have all the journal card and tag parts, and I've got 2 of my Sizzix embossing folders there, and I want to emboss all of my cards. I hardly ever do this style of embossing, so I always have to check on my Sizzix. On the bottom plate there it tells you which plates you need to do it, so I did have to have a quick look at that to remind myself. And these turned out so nice. Sometimes when you do emboss your cardstock, it can crack, especially around the edges and that of the pattern. I didn't find that these did, so that was good. And if they did, I would just spray the back of my cardstock with a bit of water to make it more pliable. But also because I'm backing these with an extra piece of cardstock, it wouldn't matter too much. So I'm using the second embossing folder there just to get a bit of a different pattern. And I finished the rest of the tags off with that. So then I grabbed some of my oxides just to add a little bit extra colour to my journal cards and tags. I don't want them to all be sort of exactly the same, and it's nice to add a little bit more colour. It also takes a little bit of the shine away from the metallic paint. So just going in with some red and some black there. And then I go around the edges with my black oxide as well while I'm at it. So there's a bit that I've cut as a backing to my journal cards and tags. I just did an extra layer that's the same as the top there. And I'm inking both sides of that. The back's going to be able to be written on, but I do want to ink on the side that I'm sticking the top to, so that if it doesn't match perfectly, it won't be just like the raw cardstock. So I'm just going in with a bit of green here as well. Looks quite bright, but the more I do with them, the more it sort of mellows out, so you don't see the colour as much. So now I've got all the little pieces that we cut out, and I'm just going around them with the black oxide as well. And I take it in a little bit here and there just to make the pieces look a little more grungy. So now I'm gluing the top embossed piece down to the backing. So just make sure that the edges match up first. And then apply glue. I'm concentrating quite thoroughly on getting glue around the edge there. It's hard to get it all matched perfectly because the embossing probably shortens that top card and that, but that's exactly why we did the inking, so it doesn't stand out as much. Now I've got those two sort of label or tab pieces, and I'm making a tag topper with them. So I'm just laying the first piece on top of my card there and making some marks where I want to do my hole punching, using the small hole on my crocodile. I'll grab a couple of brads to help attach these pieces. I think they'll look pretty cool for the theme as well. And then initially I'm just sort of sticking a brad in thinking, oh yeah, the brad will hold it all on. But I thought, no, it's going to be all loose and that they need to be stuck together. I don't know where my brain was. And then for some reason I stick this first piece on, which is all good. And then I go to stick the other piece on and only glue half. And of course we want the top glued together as well. So I do have to lift that back up and apply glue to the tops. So it all sticks together and matches up evenly. And then I can put my brads through. So now I want to do some colouring of my stamped images. So I want to colour in one of the stamps. I've got some alcohol markers there. This is a dark yellow and I'm colouring in the bee, doing his wings and his body there. I grab some, I think it's brown, and I do his legs But then I realised that I don't have to do his legs on this one, so I just do the rest of his body and that's it. And then I colour in the legs on the other image. I will be layering these, and that's why I only colour in part of the one image as far as the body. The bigger parts I colour in. And then I fussy cut out the body, and I cut off the legs and the antenna and that on this one. It's a bit fiddly doing this, but I think the end results are very well worth it. Just do it on a day where you have patience. Which, if you're like me, isn't every day. And then I could have done this beforehand, but I forgot. I've got my glitter gel pens. And I'm just doing some highlighting, just a few scribbles here and there on the yellow that I coloured in before. Just adds a nice sparkle to it. And I think I grabbed an orange glitter pen to do the brown part there because I don't have a brown glitter pen. And so with this second image, I fussy cut the whole thing, legs, antenna and all, and that was very fiddly, so I'm not even going to show you all of that. So once that's done, I go around with my black distress ink. I want to emboss the tops of my bugs. So I've got my Versamark clear ink there, and I'm pressing the top piece of the bugs into that to get even coverage. And then a generous helping of my clear embossing powder there. So I do all the pieces while I'm at it, so they're all embossed, ready to go, or they've all got the powder on, ready to go. So I use my heat gun to go over them and melt the embossing powder, which is fun. It's fun watching it change and seeing the outcome. So this is all fiddly and it does take a bit of time, but it is fun, and seeing how it turns out in the end is really cool. I'm not very good at colouring at all, so I was really happy with the way these turned out. So I go back in with my cogs, just a few of them. I wanted to try out some new embossing powders I had. Haven't used these before, so I'm not sure what they're going to turn out like. So I just do a couple with this. It's sort of a goldish one. They're chunky embossing powders. Well, this one is anyway. I'm just seeing what they look like on top of my tag, so I know whether I like it or not. And then I think for that tag and the pieces I want to put on it that I want a darker embossing powder, and I decide just to press just a few of the parts into the ink so that it just gets parts of it embossed. I thought I'd see what that looks like. I've got the clock hands there and a couple of cogs that I want to do like this. Everything's blown away as usual. So I put them up against my tag to see what it's like too, and I decide that I'm not happy with the partial embossing, so I go back in with the bits that I missed and cover it all with the embossing. And I'm much happier with the way that that looks. So now I want to put my little clock interior together. So I've got the tiniest cog and I'm putting it on a larger cog there. And then I want to attach my 2 clock hands to it. And I do that by inserting a brad through the holes in all the pieces. So my clock hands can turn at the moment. So I decided I want to do a bit of splatter on my tag before I put the other pieces on. So I've got a bit of black gesso there and I'm just adding a few drops of water so I can make it splatterable. I don't think that's a word, but I'm using it anyway. And it's obviously splatterable because I'm getting it everywhere already. And yeah, not much of the splatter ended up on the tag, but I got a lot everywhere else. So I just dab a few of the bigger, wetter bits off. And I quite like the way it looks being dabbed off like that. So I decide to go in with my black detail alcohol marker there, just on the bits that we're going to see, the legs and the antenna underneath the topper that we've got. They have been stamped and I coloured them in, some of them a little bit with brown and that, but I think they need to stand out just a little bit more. So I'm just colouring them in black, and it's also helping get rid of any of the craft card stock little bits that you can still see from my bad fussy cutting. So then I just go in with my tacky glue and stick the top on. So it just creates a bit of a 3D look for your bugs, as does the embossing. So it makes the top really stand out from the legs. So just figuring out my placement. I use the tacky glue again to stick down my clock face. I'm just going to make sure that I put the 12 o'clock up the top, something I have forgotten to do before when I've done clock faces, which is embarrassing. Then I stick down my hands. Initially I was going to leave it so that the hands could still move, but they're not really sturdy enough. If I wanted to do that, I should have probably doubled or tripled the layers up to make them really sturdy. So I've got my wildflower die cuts. I cut them out using dies from Globleland as well. And I have heaps of leftovers. I always cut extra when I cut them out. And I've decided that I want to put one of those on to fill in my tag a bit more. And I've got the Tim Holtz Small Talk stickers there. And I thought a nice little quote would be lovely on my tags as well. I grab a scrap piece of the craft cardstock and I cut all of my words apart. I ink around them and adhere them to the craft cardstock. And then I cut them out, leaving a little border with the craft cardstock. And then I thought it'd be nice to add just a little bit of colour to the edges, especially of the wildflower die cut there. So I grabbed one of my metallic stamp pads. It's just a cheapy stamp pad. And I run the edges through it, and then I grabbed the cotton tip just to add some more highlights to the inside holes and that of the die cut. So it's sort of just subtle colouring, but it really helps it stand out from the background a bit, but not look just like the solid cardstock that it's been cut out of. So then I add my quote pieces. This is where I decide to stick the clock hands down a bit so that they don't get damaged. Time to put a bug on. I also, a bit later on, did add another bug to this because I thought it was a bit bare up the top there, which you'll see when we do a recap afterwards. And then I add another cog up to the top there. It is time to recap what we have done this time around with the awesome products from Globleland. So massive thank you to Globleland. It was so much fun using these dies and stamps. So I used this stamp set. It's like an entomology one. So you've got your bugs and moth, bees, that sort of thing. Lots and lots of fun. Then I also have this set of dies. It's a really cool set of dies. I love the distressed edges on these card parts you can make. Would look awesome layered up on the front of greeting cards, which I never make greeting cards, so very rare occasion I do. But great for journal cards and tags in my journals. And I love all these steampunk bits and pieces as well. The clock face and hands and all the cogs. So I set about having heaps of fun with all of that. And don't forget, if you want to purchase anything from Globleland, there's a coupon code, which is NAT10 for 10% off of your order as well. So the products I've used today that I've just shown you and the ones I used for my last tutorial, I have linked individually down below. There's also a link to Globleland's website if you want to see the bajillions of other bits and pieces they have. You get lost on there and it's so much fun. So we'll have a look at what I made. I did a bit of experimentation and did have a lot of fun. I'll just get my cardstock back because I think you'll see a bit better on that. And that's why I had it out, so I don't know why I just pushed it away. So I did make journaling cards and tags for my journals. So I've got that one. So I did them on the craft cardstock, and I did embossing with the embossing folders. I painted the metallics onto that for the background. Did do heat embossing as well on some of the steampunk pieces, like the clock face and that. And I did do some clear embossing after I coloured in my stamped pieces and layered them. And then I used some of the little wildflowers, and they're a Globleland die as well. And the words are your Tim Holtz small talk, which I layered onto just some of the craft card and inked around. And I used this little piece here, which is one of the die cuts, and I doubled it up to do the tab on this one. And then I put the brads through there. Then we have this one with the moth on. Again, it's been coloured in, and I used my glitter gel pens on all of the bugs as well, just to give them a bit of glitter. And then I embossed with the clear embossing powder over the top. I flicked some paint onto them as well. This one has some black paint spots on it. This one I did some copper paint. And I put a brad through the cogs there. And then I have this one with the bee. Love the way they turned out. Another one of the wildflowers. And I've got the same sort of label that I used here. I just used one of them and folded it over to make a tag topper here, which I attached with a brad again so it can like move. Thought that was just something a bit different. This one has some silver splatter. And then my last one is this little tag. Now what I might do is just add some chain to the top there, which I forgot to do. I will do that and you'll see it in the photo at the end in a minute. It's got a beautiful ladybird here. Some of the cogs, and these cogs have been embossed, heat embossed as well with some gold sort of chunky embossing powder. So it was heaps of fun to try all of these techniques with the embossing and the inking and the paint and everything. So I had a stack of fun making those. So I hope you enjoyed that, and it's given you some ideas to have a go with your embossing powders and the embossing backgrounds. And yeah, the die cuts were so much fun, and these stamps, I just had heaps of fun colouring them in and doing the embossing on them, and I think they turned out really cool. I had tried that once before with a digital of some bugs, but I thought this time I'm not the best at colouring in and knowing what shades and all that to use, so I just did it really simply with my I think they were some alcohol markers, and I also used glitter gel pens. This one I used a metallic gel pen for the silver. So yeah, must do a lot more of those. They'd be handy to make up and just have ready for projects. So thank you for watching. Thank you again to Globleland. Happy crafting, and I will see you again soon. Bye.